All right, here we go. Let's see. We got sound on the microphone. That looks good. Let's turn off this preview. This is already down. I don't hear myself. That's good. All right, here we go. I think we're ready. So tonight will be a quick stream. I don't know exactly how long ago, but we'll play with a couple of different things. And to kick off the stream, I have some exciting news, which is that starting at the beginning of next year, I will be working on CircuitPython with the Adafruit team on Mondays. So we still have about a month, the rest of December to go until that begins. But starting over in January, on Mondays, I will spend the day working on CircuitPython, helping out with the libraries and anything I can. So that is going to be really fun. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it. So yeah, I'm starting with them. Before that, I'm doing some more work for them now, just outside of work hours, of course. But that will be what we're doing next year, starting in January. So I'm super excited. I definitely think it'll be a good time. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks. Hey, Dexter, how's it going? Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that from both of you. So I think definitely that's pretty cool, but there is, this is the first time I kind of have shared that publicly. I'll put a note in the weekly meeting, and I'm sure I'll be talking about it a little bit more as time goes on, but I kind of wanted to just do a quick stream and announce that here first for the folks that might catch this. Jumping into what I'm actually working on tonight, though, is the first thing is I'm looking at this RTTTL library, which I hadn't messed with before, but it turns out this is a not like it's like a ringtone song library, but not like ringtones like dial tones. This is more like smartphone ringtones, like if you wanted to make a custom ringtone and load it on kind of a maybe I shouldn't say smartphone, but like feature phone. This is an old Nokia technology as I understand it. So like nowadays, Android phones and iPhones and stuff, right? You want to put a custom ringtone, you just have an MP3 file or a wave or something like that. You put it on the drive and you can usually pick it as a file. But in the olden days, these were shared, I guess, a little bit differently. And this is like a protocol that was used to share the ringtones. And so this library implements a player in that protocol. So it consumes a string that looks like this, and it plays back a little song that is represented by this string. There's different notes and octaves and a beat signature for how fast it's going to go and stuff like that. So I'm not too super familiar with it. Again, this was the first time I had ever heard anything about it. But the thing we're trying to do specifically is fix an issue that I noticed earlier today, which is, I should have pulled up probably, but I didn't yet. Let's do that. It doesn't work on the PyPortal, or more specifically, I suspect it probably works fine on the PyPortal, but there is something causing it not to try to work correctly, I think. CircuitPython, let's do that. GitHub, here we go. So this user reported this morning an issue with this library, and it turned out to be actually just a really simple issue. We just had the typing information was out of order a little bit, so I got that fixed. But when I was fixing that, the first thing I tried to test it on was the PyPortal, and I noticed that it wasn't working for me. And what it ends up doing is that we get an invalid pin when it tries to set up PWM. Let's go back to main. Whoops. We could make a new branch, actually. Let's do that. Git fetch this. Let me hide this white one. So now we can go, checkout. PyPortal fix. This probably applies to things beyond the PyPortal, but this is what I noticed it with. From main, no track. Okay. So I think what is happening is that this is around 203 inside of here. I think this variable does not get set properly. So we have this logic, we're inside of the play function. We have this condition that says if audio IO is available, then do all of this stuff inside, which is use audio IO to try to play to initialize it so that we can go to try to play the song with it later on, further down here somewhere. Play pin, this one, play 2 pin. 201 is right here, which is where this is actually a little bit different. It is a little bit different, actually. Why would it be that different? Maybe pre-commit change the line numbers. Let's double check and make sure this is where it's failing. I believe this is where it's failing, which is where it's trying to create a PWM out, which suggests that bass tone was none, which suggests that the stuff inside of here either did not succeed correctly or did not run at all. Which we'll have to figure out the difference between that. If this were false, then the stuff in here would not run. Bass tone would be null or none. We would get to here and it would try to do this. Or if it did go inside of here, maybe if both of these were false. No, because this is greater than equals. I guess it could have failed here, maybe. But one way or another, we're ending up with bass tone, I think, being null or none and trying this. Another thing I noticed, this does say audio out in 3x needs a waveform if now pass directly to play. So if this is actually fallback code from CircuitPython 3, we could probably get rid of it and just use the new version at this point. But that's what we were trying to diagnose and then fix. What did I change? Let's roll it back to whatever it was, and then... Okay. Didn't actually change anything. So let's put this on the device. I got my PyPortal loaded up here. I'm going to delete the old one and put this one so I make sure I'm working with this exact copy. Did I just copy the wrong thing? I feel like that said simple test or something. It didn't show up. Reload. Yeah, it seems like a yeah, simple test. Wrong thing. Delete that. We don't need that. We want the library. Library. This file. Paste this over here. And now I do need the simple test also, but I'm going to paste it inside a code. Oh, I have it actually inside a code already. Okay. So simple test is pretty easy. This device, the PyPortal, does have a speaker enable pin. We need to set it to high. It's like a mute override, basically. If this is not high, it won't play anything out of the speaker. And then it just tries to play a couple of different songs here. So I'll go to the camera. Maybe put this over here. Put this over here. You should get the terminal. Okay, I have the terminal. So I'm going to go run invalid pin. Yeah, so right now it fails on line 201, which is PWMIO. So we're going to figure out how it gets to there. Let's go inside play. This, I'm going to put one before also. Question mark. This. So now this will print false. So it is false before we get to here. So where does this get set? Starts on false. It imports audio IO waveform. Maybe we're missing waveform? Maybe we're just missing waveform. Yeah, I don't have waveform. That's probably what it is, actually. This. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's playing. I don't know if the maybe we'll put it up and put it up here. It's probably coming through. Hopefully it's not too loud. So that is all we needed, actually. It just doesn't have the library. So could we... If you import a module... I think I want to move this one out of the catch block, or the try block, rather. But I guess the deal is probably we don't need this. Where do we use this? Get wave. Sine wave sample, play. Okay. Get wave. So probably it's not needed if we fall back to PWMIO? Yeah. Well, this is not the PWMIO part, though. If PWM... If PWM, okay. So yeah, if it does go to PWM, sets the frequency in the duty cycle here. After it's done playing the whole thing, it puts the duty cycle to 0 and it stops. So basically we don't need sine import unless we have audio IO. So I do get why it's inside of here. But I also think it would be great if we got the right error, if we were missing that. Like specifically in my case, I have audio IO that can work fine. I just also needed this library and didn't realize it. Let's check a couple other places. It does have waveform here. That's actually good. It probably is listed here, maybe? Is there dependencies? Yeah, it's in dependencies also. So if I had followed directions, we would not have had this trouble. But I do think it would be good to specifically give that error. What if we do like... What if we... What if we do this? And this. Gotta get less shouty. False, there we go. So if it imports, this will be true. If not, print E. Is it dot message or just E? Okay, and let's delete waveform. Or I'm just gonna rename it actually. And we don't have that. Still playing, which I find a little weird. Okay. Okay. So this time we did get this printed. Is there a, no, it's like traceback or something. We don't have a way to print the, do we have a way to print the whole traceback? Why is the import for sign in the try in the first place if it broke without? So basically the library supports both audio I/O and PWM I/O if audio I/O is not available. On the PyPortal, it turns out that you can't use the speaker pin with PWM I/O, but the PyPortal does support audio I/O, which is actually the better of the two. It's basically like audio I/O is, if I understand it, like a DAC audio output, so it's like able to make better sound, I guess, or sound better out of the speaker. PWM I/O is kind of like faking it with PWM signals. And so that's like a fallback. And basically what happened is this is in the try block. Essentially, the purpose of the try block is actually to determine whether audio I/O exists on the given device or not. Because if audio I/O import fails, then it knows it will go back to PWM I/O. But we just got accidentally caught in a weird spot where we actually do have audio I/O, but we still ended up catching this because we were missing the waveform library. Yeah, well, I mean, it does raise this error here. Invalid pin comes from when it tries to initialize PWM I/O and it doesn't work. So that part does raise, but mostly I want to get it to do this. I want it to tell me we were missing the waveform module. Because if it had printed that out, then I would have seen it right away and known exactly what the problem was. I don't know if we have a way to print like the full stack trace. I think you need the traceback module maybe, right? And I don't think we have that. Be thinking of something else though. Yeah, no worries. Happy to explain it. Circuit. Let's just try Python first. Python print traceback from exception object. This is different because it's not using the object. Traceback. Ooh, maybe it does exist. Format exception. Oh, okay. We just give it the exception. Traceback. Of course, it is another import. print exception. Seems easy enough. So we probably don't need print. Value. Value. E-type. Import error. E-type, base exception. It says this is ignored. This is, I guess, format versus print. This looks ignored here too. The exception. To be also. So these are all required, but don't have respect type. I don't know where we get these from. It's not like an object on there. There's no sample code. So it looks like this is where the type comes from, at least. So it's actually just passing the object again. Let's try it this way. And then I get that. Okay, well, I think I'm not going to mess with traceback. It'd be nice to have the line number and everything, but I don't necessarily want to chase this all the way. We don't need pass anymore. Can just print E. traceback, we could do that. Yeah, that's where I think that's where it hung, right? This is what they said. What is this? Narrow-doc. Yeah, I'm guessing it. I'm thinking it hung. Let's see. Can I control C? No. Yeah. So, I have, of course, this I guess is only 26 days ago. Traceback object. Knit. Okay. Well, we'll take one more hop through the rabbit hole, actually. Let's see, because this was 25 days ago, merged to main. I have 710 beta. Maybe we just missed it for this one, and I need to build from main, and then it would work. Or just grab absolute newest. Let's do that. Of course, if it is not broken, I mean, if it is broken, then I don't want to make the library require absolute newest, actually. Yeah, actually, we don't want the library to require absolute newest. It should work with the current release, stable release, hopefully, and the beta. So maybe we can come back and fix that later. I'm curious, but I think I'll table it for now and just go. Right, we need to unplug and replug. No, you're fine. I was curious to see if that was going to be the same issue. Oh, but it is in CodePy, and it is going to run over and over. We need to go to safe mode. Yeah. Maybe I can control C it quick enough? Doesn't seem like it. No, you're fine. What is safe mode? It's like, oh, I think it's the second click while, oh nice, I got it on the first try. I don't think I've ever done that on the first try before when I was trying to. I think it's like the second press is during the yellow light. We made it to safe mode though. We go here, we go here. Well, it's not here though, it's in the library. Here. Here. And realistically, we'd already have that from that, but I think that's okay. Let's go. I want to say, is there like an e.message? I want to say there's something. Okay, and then we need to, how do we, we're still in safe mode. We just reset, I guess, to get back. Yeah. No, didn't print anything. Has no message. Okay. I don't know where I got that from. Maybe we'll make a Okay. I think this is nice. I mean, it's not entirely necessary, but I think it's nice to have it print and tell you the exact reason why it's actually failing, which in this case is different than just not having audio I/O. And then if we were on a device that supported PWM on that pin, then we would not get this error. It's just that the PyPortal doesn't need it because it has audio I/O. So we will take out the other print that I added here, both of them. Save it again. And we get the print. We got our failure. I think that's a little better. I'll copy this. And if it succeeded, then it wouldn't have any import errors. Except I guess maybe audio core. That has its own accept block. So let's do one more thing too. Let's put waveform back. Could probably be here. There we go. Wasn't done updating yet, but now it's running and it's making the sounds. Okay. Okay. So the only changes, we made it in Boolean, we set it to true. If it's false, print. I guess we don't really need I already committed. I should run pre-commit though, I guess. Yeah, I should run pre-commit first. That probably got rid of the extra line. Not the one I was thinking. Do this too, though. Okay. Now we're good. Oh, it added a line. That took one away. Okay. We'll see. I don't know if they'll want it to print out, but it definitely would have helped me when I ran into this earlier, because I would have known what the issue was before looking into it. So if other folks like it and it would have helped me, I say let's make the PR and see. All right. We'll let that run back there. Okay, so that was the first thing I wanted to work on. The next stuff is going to be more outside the libraries and stuff. Let me note this down, actually. Let's see. Check this. Okay. And I should maybe check in on the old YouTube comments and make sure we're not getting the spams there. Nope, not so far, so that's good. Okay. So yeah, the next thing I'm gonna work on is not in the libraries, just more of a fun project, which I started actually a couple of weeks back on one of my streams on the weekend. I worked on Raspberry Pi Pico with a little WaveShare LCD add-on, and I was working on making this Pac-Man game for it. And really, the kind of history on this is I was working on this. I got the bare bones kind of basic portion of the game working, and I had an idea of being able to capture the ghosts. Like, I want to make a new little thing that you can maybe press the A button or the B button or something, and it drops a ghost vacuum, for lack of a better term. I'm imagining it like the box in Ghostbusters that they throw out and it catches ghosts. So you throw that thing down on the ground, and then when a ghost walks over it or floats over it, they get captured by it, and then at the end of the round, it tallies up all the ghosts that you've caught, and it will store them in the NVM storage, and then there will be a menu where you can like spend your ghost, you know, plasma souls or whatever. You can spend your captured ghosts to get power-ups for your Pac-Man. So like maybe you can move faster, or maybe you can grab pellets from further away, or maybe you can you know, get power-ups against the ghosts, like make you invulnerable for a certain amount of time or something. I don't really know what all the power-ups will be, but that's the basic idea. And when I had this idea, I did work on NVM storage to make a helper library to store the data in it. And then that's when I figured out that the Pico and all RP2040s actually had a problem with NVM storage. But we actually fixed that this past weekend. So now that's not an issue anymore. So I can go back and actually use my helper library for what I originally had intended it for, which was to store the stuff for the Pac-Man game. So that's what I'm going to work on. Here we have this device plugged in now. Let's see, we need to do a couple of things. One thing I'm going to do is, I don't think the engine that draws the game has a concept of a camera, and the camera can move around. But this game I don't think is actually using the camera yet. I'm actually gonna start by making the camera work, which to do that we need to go make a map that's actually big enough to require moving the camera around. I'll go here actually, and I can just go map size Oh no, I can't. Okay, resize map. This. Ooh, that would give me enough to put the walls. Maybe I'll go 3, so there's actually a tile to walk on over there. And down there. Let's do that. Let's go save as map 3. And before I could actually use it, I do need to fill this stuff in. So background. Here. Here. Copy the walls. Cut, actually. Here. And this might have been easier to just redraw all of these, but I'm a copy paster. Here. Okay. Now we're close. We just need a couple more of these. Here. Whoops. And here. And we need vertical ones. Oh dear. Nope, messed it up. Okay. And I'll go ahead and fill in the dots. We don't really care too much, truthfully, about the dots right now, but fill them in for fun. Pellets, these are called. And I guess we could put some here too. I don't know, is there one behind the ghost? Yeah, there is, okay. We'll eventually make more walls and stuff. Obviously, this level's very plain, but it will serve the purpose of working on the camera, so I'm just going to save it like this. Save. We need to export it as JSON. And we need to copy it to the device, and then change the code to load it. Copy. Paste it here. And then we can change the code to use it. We'll go 3. And there's also, it loads again when you get hit by the ghost. Eventually we'll need to make a kind of a higher level of this. Right now, pretty much CodePy contains the entire game, but we need to add like a menu for, you know, buying the power-ups, basically. And I think it would also be good once we have that higher level kind of orchestrating when different levels get uploaded or loaded and run and stuff. We might be able to do this without actually making a new game instance. I think we could keep the same one and just like load a new map only, but for now we have it loading a new one, so I'll put the size there. Okay, so we do have a bigger one than the screen, but it probably crashes. Yeah, it crashes when we run off the edge. Tile index out of bounds. Inside game tick is inside of the chart choppers library 60. Shouldn't be game object Tile chords changed to 24. Boy, this feels hard-coded. Pac-Man. Which I guess that makes sense. This is the pie chart chopper library. Maybe that's not so bad. Change map tile. So it's trying to change it actually to empty, right? Yeah. 24 is the bottom one down here. And it might be 1 based versus 0 based or something, so maybe 24 is this one. I don't actually know for sure. It doesn't matter too much for sure. But what it's doing is setting in the map layer, it's setting the square with the pellet to a blank square. It shouldn't be out of bounds of the tile grid, though. I don't think. Be out of bounds of the camera, certainly. Map object layers, layer with index 1, data. Translate the coordinates to an index because our actual map data is stored as a single list instead of XY two-dimensional grid. Set it equal the new index. Maybe get index from chords doesn't do the math right. So let's print each one as it goes by. It will spam a bunch, but that's all right. So we'll head over this way. Oh, it's not oh, it is spamming. Yeah. Oh, true. That's not what I expected. True. Why are we printing true? Were we printing true before? Well, this is different though, because we're not getting this. This is very fast. Is it inside a game tick? Guess let's just find prints. Yeah, thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. And I totally agree. 2022 is going to be awesome. I'm very excited. This has been an idea that I've kind of had in mind to start splitting time like this for a little while, so it's super exciting to see it come to fruition. Score 1, where do we should not have printed just a boolean by itself because it is files to load. Layer tiles, this should not be a boolean either. In CodePy? Print. Okay, yeah. So that was the other thing I had to do. Originally when I made this, I made it for that WaveShare Pico add-on, and now it's on the PicoSystem. Has slightly different buttons. So I was troubleshooting making the buttons work last night. Oh, too slow, got run into by the ghost. There we go. Now we're seeing the prints we want. 7 by 16. So 16 seems right because I do have 16 by 16 tiles on the screen, which means the last one visible is 15 because it starts on 0. So this is right outside the camera. So what do we get for the index? We get for the index. What was this? This was like change tile? Side. Change map tile. Change. Okay. So the coordinates seem fine. Maybe we also go index like this. And actually get the index. So it should be one more than the one before it. It looks like it is. Did I only change the size of one layer or something? No, these don't have height and width, so those have to take the map. Index. Tile index. Is that talking about which tile on the sprite sheet, or is that talking about the coordinates? So we set the tile inside the map data, basically, and then we set it on the tile grid. Which one are we actually failing on? Setting it on the tile grid. Oh, the tile grid is only the size of the camera. Yes. Okay. This is the kind of problem I was expecting to solve. So map tile grid is an actual tile grid instance, and it's only the size of the camera. It's not as big as the entire map because we don't need any of the tiles that aren't on the screen. Hey there, Bampan. Yeah, I totally agree. Pico is a lot of fun to play with. I just recently picked up this PicoSystem, and I like it quite a bit as well. But really, all the RP2040 based devices are really nice and really cheap for what they are. Super powerful, honestly. So we don't want to make that any bigger, but we need to reload it. Basically, we need to move the camera so that the map tile grid is showing only the tiles visible right now. But we also would need some kind of translating between map coordinates and camera coordinates, because here we would need to modify these based on where the camera's at. Otherwise, stuff would get drawn in the wrong spot, I think. So let's start with, if we get close to the edge, let's move the camera. Or really, we can even go more basic than that. What if we just move the camera when we start and see if it breaks? This is probably going to end up happening inside GameTick, but for now I'm just going to put it in CodePy. Yeah, put it in CodePy, but I'm going to put it before we go to the loop so that it just happens once. And I think we can just call set camera location or something. It's been a while since I used one with an actual camera. Let's see. Camera lock, yeah. In tile chords, we give it dictionary with XY. So let's just go my game, set camera. Is it lock or location? Lock, and then dictionary X. We'll just do 1 because it should be on 0. 0 or a Y. 0 here. Okay, it didn't. Okay, it did crash. I was supposed to say it didn't crash, but it's not. It didn't update also. It did crash. This is the old crash though. This is the new crash. Oh, maybe it's not a dictionary? Camera lock 326. Load tile grids, call set camera lock. Is this tile grids? Okay, which has got build tiles list inside of it. So no, it's going other way around. Set camera lock is calling load tile grids. We don't have keys on the entity map. Where does that come from? Got past that. It defaults to none. Okay. Well, none doesn't have keys, so that does make sense. We should probably find out where does this get called from when it passes in something for that. This one doesn't. This one doesn't either. There's the, well, maybe in here? No. It must be not none sometimes, because it does draw the ghosts. We have, oh, okay, this is not a declaration. Okay, thought this was the declaration. So we call this is inside of a init. Inside of a init. Hey, how's it going, Seagrover? Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Definitely looking forward to it as well. So here is where 116 is where this was at. We called it entity map self.npc entity map. We can probably just pass this back to it inside of here. We will need to either give it the right name or in the right order though. It's like name, npc entity map. I guess, I mean, we're inside of self. Maybe we should just be referencing self for that. That's it for now. Oh, interesting. This thinks it doesn't have this. I guess because it's not a property, though. It just gets created as a local field. Or does it? It's inside of init still. Sure why it thinks it doesn't exist. It should, I mean, it could be none if it could stay none. Oh, what did I just do? Okay, this is not really where it's setting though. This is where it's checking. So actually, I don't see where it gets set. If it has been set, then make a new local variable entity map and set it to the same value, which we probably don't need to be doing. Which is what gets passed to this. If it has not already been set, then it's going to use none. How did it get set the first time? I guess, is this subclasses need to do it? I need to document the game loading thing more and just use it more, truthfully. Haven't used it that much. Okay, so subclasses need to do that. And this subclass made this one. Okay, yeah. Some of this is coming back. So this is mapping the name of this entity ghost as a string over to the type of object that it is gonna instantiate for it. So the string ghost, when it finds one in the map, it's gonna create a ghost object. Ghost object is up here. Ghost object extends entity. Entity is basically a tile grid that also has a direction. It's moving up, down, left, or right. And it has a tick function, maybe, to actually take a step. Oh, and it has colliding logic. So the subclass does override that, which makes sense why this thinks it's none, because it is none inside of here until the subclass does it. So this is probably fine, truthfully. I think if we fill that in, yeah. Okay, so let's get the camera. Oh, okay. So we did get past the line we had before, I think. But now we have the next problem, which is at 230, we're already in a group. We probably need logic that's like, don't add it to the group if it's already there. Yeah. So for each enemy in entities, something's going to need to change their location. Maybe that's already in there. If enemy tile grid not in self, didn't add it. Self is a group. I think. Yeah, self is a group. So if we don't already have it in our group, then add it. Oh, I saw it start to move. I saw everything shift. Cursor, we're not using the cursor. We could just probably just need logic that says don't update the cursor if it's not being used. Which we probably have on self dot. We have cursor lock. We have use cursor. Do we store that? Self.use cursor. Okay. So here we just need if this update. Player location probably would have the same problem if you didn't have a player object, but I do have a player object, so it's okay. So it shifted, Oh, it only does it when it first loads. Not after you get hit by the ghost and it reloads. So it did shift it, but the wall there is not in the right spot. Basically, it shifted the top half of it, and it shifted it visually, but not logically. I can still not walk on where the walls used to be. So I can't go over here, and I can't go on this one here, because that's where this little bump actually is at, logically. So when we check for collisions, we need to take into account the camera. Yeah, that's what this, in the Twitch chat there, Batman, this is the Pimoroni PicoSystem, which is a whole little self-contained thing. You can actually unscrew these and you can get to the inside of it, and it's got a board and a battery and a couple of things inside there, but it comes all put together as one big piece. Here's the box, the outside of the box that it comes in. It's a little close though, I guess. So let's make this more easily testable. Let's move the camera after we get hit by the ghost. That way we can keep testing it and not needing to restart. And then, why did we only move the top half, right? Like down here, we still have the wall. This makes me think something is still hard-coded to the height of the wave share screen, which was roughly about that tall. But it can't be the whole camera because we're seeing the rest of the screen here. We set camera height and width here to 16. So what do we do when we actually change the camera? Load the tile grids. Update the cursor if it's in use. We should probably have similar logic here, but I don't have an example of a game without a player to test it, so I'm going to leave it for now. It must be inside load tile grids. Did we hard code? So these are hard coded. Yeah, this is the problem. This is calling load tile grid. These are using 10 and 8, which are actually defaults from different game entirely. Oh, got a delivery. We should pass them back here, which we probably keep it on. Well, what do we pass it from the first time? Camera width and camera height. We might not store those yet. Camera location. Yeah, doesn't look like we store those yet. We could probably use a tuple or something for this and it would not take as much memory, maybe? Don't actually know. Camera width. Camera height. And then when we call this back down here, whoops. Oh, we have a camera width and height. Do we actually have those? Ah, we do. Okay, we don't need camera size. I need this. We already have them. This is another place maybe we should be just using self instead of load tile grids and not getting past, but it is how it is for now, at least. Height. Okay, this should shift the whole map, I think, instead of only the top half. Yeah, and it does go slower. And we got a second ghost. And we still do have the logic problem of the collisions are checking where stuff used to be, not where it's at now. So one thing is we probably don't want to... This is probably creating a new ghost, which we're seeing drawn on the screen there. If I run into the second ghost, do I lose? I do. Interesting. Okay. I'm surprised that the colliding with the second ghost works, but it doesn't move. Maybe it's the first ghost? I don't actually know which one got created first, I guess. Basically, load tile grids, this kind of expects to get called the first time. It was a bunch of setup. Really, we want to ignore the entity layer in the map. When we're shifting the camera. Because all the entities could have moved from where they're at in the map file. Index tile index in map tiles. Build tiles list. So we have background tiles, we have map tiles. I called these player tiles, but it's actually entity tiles. I probably named it player tiles before I added the ghost. So really this could be entity tiles. And we don't really want to do this anytime except the first time, really. Every other time we need to look at where the entity's at currently and then apply the camera offset to that. I don't know which way to default it. Let's default it to true, I guess. That way the first time we call it, we don't change the method, but the next time we set it to false. Every subsequent time we set it to false. None. And then if this, then we do this. Probably don't need to be printing it, but in fact, that's probably where a bunch of my spam comes from when I first load the game. We're looping over all the map tiles. The current tiles index is not 0. Set the player index. Entity tiles index. I don't know why we would do that. I mean, we're looping over map tiles and the player is not in the map tiles. Map tiles are pellets and walls. I don't know why we would be setting this. I guess it is checking each index. Get tile property player layer index -1. Player property. Why would it be getting just whatever the current index is, though? This is this list, and it comes from 2. File ID property name. Yeah, that seems odd to me that it's not looking in the entity layer specifically. But when it's looking up the properties are the same for every layer, so that part doesn't take into account the layer. But it's odd. This feels like it's looping through the things in map tiles, which should be just these, pellets and walls, which don't include the player. This would be the count, the current index, where this would be the actual like ID of the tile. Like this one is 4, or maybe 3 because it's off by 1, or maybe 5 because it's off by 1 the other way. I don't remember which way it goes. Okay. And then we go inside of entity tiles, get the current index we're looking at, store it into here, then check if it is the player. That does make a little bit of sense, actually. But we don't need to do any of that if we are not doing this. Because player is going to be on entity. If we're not loading the entities, we're not needing to do this. And we're not needing to do any of this either, I don't think. Yeah. Basically, we're just checking each tile in the entities layer at the same time as we are actually placing it into the map layer here. We're already looping over them anyway. Might as well check at that time. So now we should not have two ghosts. But the one ghost we have... Oh, no, we do still have two ghosts. Oh, because I didn't actually call false. Right. So inside camera lock, set camera lock, we want to do false load entities. And we probably don't need this anymore. Now we should not have two ghosts. Yeah, and we don't. One thing is it does take a while to update, which I was afraid of a little bit on this device, because it's 16 by 16 tiles, which is a lot of tiles to change dynamically. But it does work. So really what we want now is like move the camera, since it takes kind of a long time to load, we probably want to do it as infrequently as possible, because it's gonna like pause the game for a second basically. So, like some games will just follow the player around with the camera, but I don't think we want that. I think we want, when we get to the edge, then we take the step with the camera. And we should not just take one step, we should scoot ourselves all the way to the other side of the screen, basically. So if we walk off the right edge of the screen, it's going to pause to change the camera. When it comes back, the player should be on the left edge of the screen with all the rest of the new stuff we can see to the player's right. In this case, we're almost at the wall anyway, so there's not a lot to see, but I think that's how we want it to work. So how about, instead of just moving the camera at the beginning, let's move it when the player gets to the right edge. And should we start to put it inside a game tick, or should we still put it out here? I think I'm going to keep it out here for now, but eventually I think this probably goes inside game tick. If my game player dot... Do I have a helper for getting the tile? Like the tile coordinates, XY? If not, I should make that. Oh, but I don't know if it knows... It knows its own size. There's entity, there it is. So these are pixel coordinates, not tile coordinates. Well, these are setters also, but the getters, these are pixel coordinates. Doesn't look like it has tile coordinates. It would need to know, I guess it would need to know... It would need to know the size of the map. And where the camera's at, actually. It would need to know a bunch of stuff to give you tile coordinates, I guess. So that should be at the game layer, not the entity layer. So we can just use pixels, though. If we're close to the right edge of the screen in pixels, then we want to move the camera. So if X is, let's say, greater than or equal to, we're inside of code, so I have display, but eventually we'll need to move this into the game. We'll do camera width times tile size, maybe. Display width minus. The problem is we have the wall. Well, the wall's further over, actually. Do we just do the size of the entity? Minus my game player entity width. Does that exist? Half width, self.width, yeah. This is where we want to go. My game, set camera lock. So really I want to take the full step, which means we want to move most of the camera width. But we do need to know the current one. I don't know if we have that actually. So that's where we're at. We want to go maybe plus camera width. Full width or the full width minus 1? I feel like it's probably should be minus 1. But it'll be much easier to tell when it actually loads, although we might need to make a wider map. So take the current X, add most of the width of the camera to it. Keep the Y the same, because this is looking at X only. Camera Y. And I don't think we have these yet, truthfully. Yeah. Oh, we have camera lock. That's what we should use. Fortunately, I've been bad about some things use lock in its dictionary and some things are XY. Camera lock. X. Camera lock. Y. That stays the same. And we need to move the player too, since changing the camera. Really, I guess what we want is when we change the camera, it should move the player for us, but it doesn't right now, I don't think. And because it doesn't right now, I think it will keep calling this over and over again. So I think I'm gonna manually just go my game player entity X minus equals like 32 for now, because the width is 15. So that'll scoot it over to make it not just keep happening over and over. And actually, while I'm here, I'll do this direction none. So it'll stop moving also. Okay. Maybe maybe it wasn't supposed to be none. Next pixel lock. Current direction. Yeah, probably not none, but this. I could turn it off so it doesn't scroll at the beginning too. Okay, so there's our pause, and we redrew. Not sure where our Pac-Man ended up, but we clearly do have some issues. Minus 32. I don't know, this shouldn't be any different, should it? I think it should be any different. But I also would have expected to see the Pac-Man, I think. Can't go down from there. So it's just gone now. And if I move in any direction, it's gonna crash. But it doesn't crash until I move. Maybe I should not just be modifying the tile grid directly. Of like tile grid. We do have setters for X and Y. What does player do? So I think this should be in pixels. Maybe it's in tiles though? See what it is. I mean, it must be in pixels for this to trip, right? Player X negative 210. So inside set camera lock, which is calling load tile grids. Inside load tile grids, it's probably moving the player still, even though we had load entities turned off. It must be changing the player. Update tile grids maybe is what we should be calling instead of load tile grids again. Oh. Oh, no, no. Yeah, we still want to do this. This is all the stuff we're skipping. Count. I think this is keeping track of how many pellets there are, so that we know whenever we have eaten the last pellet. Doesn't seem like it should move the player, though. So let's turn off some of this spam and try it and see if the player X is different. Okay, we still have a lot of spam. Let's turn this one off. Still have a good chunk here of building. Let's keep that, but turn off this. Okay. But actually, when we called it the first time, well, we haven't called it yet. We called change the camera location, but we haven't gotten inside of here yet. These are all the ghosts, which we could turn off. Don't really need these anymore. Ghost movement was like the last thing I did before picking this back up this time around. Okay, now we have much less stuff going on. And I ran straight into the ghost. Okay, so we went from 225 to negative 195 when we changed the camera lock. Maybe we should start by doing only one instead of the full width. Does the player move less far if we just do +1? Actually, you know what I'm going to do is keep this, because that's the actual logic I want. I think. It's closer, at least. But let's do this as 1. And is our difference less now? We went from 295 to negative 195 or something like that. This time it is less. We went from 225 down to 0. Whereas before we had like another minus 200-ish. Update player location. That's probably it. So should we not be doing this? But I think it's still not going to the right spot, is it? Maybe we would not have had that problem that I was thinking about where it was going to keep hitting the edge over and over. So I guess maybe the player is going to the right spot. Yeah. Maybe we don't need to mess with the player at all because we're still doing move the camera by 1 at the beginning. Here. And the actual player is 3 tiles in. We have wall, wall, player. And after doing this, it's not actually going to run because I didn't change anything. Yeah, the player scoots to the left. So we don't need to minus. I was wrong, and it does update the player for us. But then when we scoot the camera too far, we go off the edge. Why would we be going off the edge? Okay, so we're changing the X and Y of the player entity, which is going to set the X and Y of the tile grid ultimately. Tile width is 15 and height also. Times the player lock minus the camera lock X. Does it just work without the minus 32? Does it just work here? It does, okay. So we were like just barely off the screen. But that's what I want. When you go off the right edge of the screen, you should appear on the left edge. Although right now we're only moving the camera by 1. So actually in that case we shouldn't be going all the way to the left edge. Because we should just be 1 column over. We should still be over here. Maybe we're not updating player lock when we are moving the player. Yeah. We're changing X and Y directly on player entity, which goes through to the tile grid. We need to also set it in player lock, or else we need to not be keeping player lock separately. Because this is basing it off of player lock. Which I think the reason why we have this is that, truthfully, this part of the tile map loader got written before I was working on Pac-Man, and in the previous game, the player did not have individual pixel control. The player could only move 1 tile at a time. So keeping track of its location in tiles like this was pretty much fine. But now we're moving individual pixels just by editing essentially the same thing this is doing, actually, player entity X and Y. So where do we actually update this? This is in player game tick. We have game object. These are where they're updating. These are like snapping it back. Since the player can move per pixel, theoretically, the player could end up in between two tiles. And this is making it so you actually snap to one tile or the other. So we could do something like this. Just set it back based on the tile width. I mean, really, we shouldn't be keeping. We probably don't need player lock, and we probably shouldn't be using player lock when we update the player location, or maybe we should. I don't know. It's kind of just like a difference between the types of games. Originally made more sense because the player was always on one tile. Player lock. So I think though the problem is still this is not taking into account the camera. So the player might still jump kind of weirdly or something. Oh, nope, crash. As doesn't have tile width. No, we get the tile width when we create it. We should just keep it. Maybe we have tile size or something. I think we have the tile width. Maybe we don't have the tile width. We must get it from somewhere. Where didn't we have it inside update player location? Under, okay, it's private. Okay, I'm okay with that. For now. It could probably be made public, or really we should make non-_ones that are getters, but not allow setting. I think it gets set by the data inside the map. Okay, now we can move. There we go. That's where we should be. And I made it so that we stop moving. I set the direction to none. So that makes sense. And in fact, I think that's like exactly where we want to be. Might be off by 1. Scoot over 1. So at this point we have, let's try to visualize this here. At this point we are, okay. At this point, this is what's visible. 16 by 16. So we are actually off by 1 tile, I think. Because when we go to here, that last pellet we ate should have been this one, I think. And we are now showing this 16. Wait a minute, did I have 17 before? Okay, 16, yeah, this is now, I was looking in the wrong spot. 16 by 16, this is now what we're showing, which includes the first wall. So I do think we are actually off by 1. Or I guess we just don't get a chance to eat the pellet. Maybe we're like exactly on the line of 1 pixel and we don't get a chance to eat the pellet because we don't actually make it onto the tile that the pellet is on. That's probably it, actually. Yeah. That's probably it. My guess is this is stopping us exactly 1 pixel before we would have eaten the pellet. So we could test that theory, right? We could just say -1, and if we eat the pellet, then that is true. Oh. This time we scooted further, but I guess we scooted further because... Well, wouldn't we have gone sooner? We still didn't eat the last pellet. Should this have been a +1? Maybe this should have been a +1. Width minus 16, basically. Display width minus 16. Minus another 1. Yeah, we should be +1, because we want to go further to the right by 1 step to allow it to eat the pellet. Okay. But did we eat the pellet or not? 815, 4 + 1. I don't know if we were getting that last time. Index out of bounds does kind of make sense. So now we're kind of going one extra pixel off the edge. I would think, I mean, we should get scrolled back by setting the camera, but maybe for a second we are off the edge and it doesn't like that. So really the question is, did we eat the pellet? That's what I'm most curious about. And we can't tell since it crashed. What if we just, what if we print the score? Where do we have the score at? Probably just like my game score, maybe? Score? Howdy. So let's just say when this triggers, print my game score. And I should not print it by itself. I should do this. Okay. So now we will see what the score is when it triggers. So I'll just go to the right only. I won't go down at all. Crash. Ooh, it doesn't, didn't print. But we're changing the camera. Oh, run into the ghost. We had 13 that time. But it seems like we just crashed all the way. Maybe we could cheat a little bit. What if we go... put the +1 back, and then... just put it back down by 1. But we should still get the collision check for the pellet. Maybe. From the previous frame? I'm not sure. We had 13 score this time. Let's see if we get a score right before we crash. Or maybe we don't crash anymore. No, we still crash. And we don't get a score. So it's not tripping this. I'm surprised that we're not getting inside of this a little bit. Because we are we changing the camera? I feel like it's pausing to change the camera. No, I guess not. Okay. Guess we could count the +1s from right here, but I think we're crashing before we would actually have a chance to collect the pellet, so I suppose that settles it. So I do think we're off by 1. Really, this was all to try to discover if we're actually off by 1, and I think we are. Because I do think we should eat the last pellet. Because we should be able to get to that tile when this is what is showing. Basically what we want is, as soon as we touch this tile, two things should happen. The player checking its game tick should check for collisions on the pellet and should realize that it ate it. And the game, which is checking for the player to be near the edge, basically within the last tile, should realize that we're within the last tile and it should move the camera. But right now, we don't eat the pellet, but we do move the camera when we fix this. I think that is what we need to work on, but I do also think I'm probably going to call it a night pretty soon. Yeah. I mean, I guess if we didn't change we didn't stop the direction, well, we also still have the problem of the logic not lining up with the visual. If we don't stop the player moving, then it'll still be trying to go to the right, which means I guess it would eat the pellet like in the next tick. But this is our next problem. Ooh, that's fun. Look at that. Every time it scoots over. Interesting. Oh wow, look at that. We're erasing the walls instead of erasing the pellets. That's a fun game. Basically the collisions are... Oh, the chat's covering the video, sorry. Basically the collisions are not accounting for the camera. Also, a bunch of the wall tiles came back. I don't know why those came back. That's interesting. Oh, I guess it reset? Reset because I got close to the edge. That's what happened. But we don't eat them anymore, which is interesting. Oh, there we ate one. Okay, only if they're low enough. Or something. I don't know. Basically, though, the collisions are not accounting for the camera, which means we're not running into things where they look like they are. And instead, we're running into them in some weird spot where they would have been if the camera didn't move. I should not just let it infinitely go. Although, who knows? Maybe it would do something fun. And that's going to be, I think, a little tough to solve, maybe. Well, no, we have the game object, so... Let's see, where do we actually check for collisions with the pellets? Right here. We'll move out of this ghost's way. So we actually have two spots we need to update the logic. We should try to change it to where we only need to do it in one spot, though, if we can. The player, when it calls game tick, it's checking if the tile it's moving to is a pellet. But this is not... These are not accounting for the camera. These need to like add or subtract an offset based on the camera. Then the collisions will line up with the visuals for the player. And then the next thing is the ghost has its own collision checking. Game tick. Maybe it doesn't. Where do we find out? Where does this get called from? Okay, we set it inside of here. We call it? Where do we call it from? Shouldn't be inside of here. Here. I just had an extra. Okay, I just had an extra underscore. So inside game tick, we go over all the ghosts. If the ghost is colliding with the, well, if the player is colliding with the ghost, lose level. We should be using this is colliding inside of here, maybe. I guess maybe it's doing it 1 pixel before it collides. Not sure. Shouldn't have different logic though. If we already have is colliding, we should probably just be using it to check if we're touching the pellets instead of having custom logic up here. Maybe there was a reason for it that I'm not remembering, but. So then basically inside of here, we would also add the offsets for the camera, and then that would fix it so that the ghosts collide with the player at the right spot, which actually we should have been getting collided the whole time, right? Because before the camera moves, the player is actually in the way of the ghost. If we don't move the camera at all, then the ghost will hit us if we don't move. Yeah. And if we do move the camera, we get missed by the ghost. The ghost is turning too early. So actually that's another place where we need to update the collisions. Where does the ghost decide to turn? Next tile, coordinates. These need to do the offset as well. These need to be offset from the camera. That will make it so the ghost turns in the right spot, which in this case means it would get this last column, which is where our player happens to be, which would mean we would get hit if we don't move, which is what we want. Okay, so those are the things we need to fix next. But I think I am going to call it for now. I did mostly just want to dove back into this, figure out what the state of it was, start working on the camera, because I knew this was going to be a little bit of a, you know, kind of complex thing to get the camera working. But once we do get it working, then we can go back and add our little ghost vacuum and our NVM storage and all the rest of the stuff that I have planned for this. But I did want to be able to make maps bigger than the screen, so I figured I should bite the bullet and work on the camera. I'm going to check on this. I don't think anybody replied or anything, but in case if anybody... No, okay. I was going to say if there was any feedback on that, I could address it. But so yeah, thanks for hanging out this evening, folks. Thank you for all of the kind words in the chat. I definitely appreciate that, and each and every one of you. I will be back on the normal time, which is 10 a.m. Central on Saturday. So a couple of days from now. And I don't know if I'll work on this or not, but I will be working on something. And yeah, thanks for hanging out. Thank you, Scott, as well. C. Grover and Keith. And I'll see you guys on Saturday.